Hello and welcome to This Date in History, aka TDH. This show is all about the events that occurred today in years past, both recognized by actual historians, but mainly things I personally find intriguing enough for me to bring to you. The source of this information comes from the smart device application On This Day. The music in the background is Heroes by RetroVision, which I found on the YouTube channel No Copyright Sounds, aka NCS. For links to the app, music, and anything else potentially interesting, check the underbar. Now let's get on with the show, shall we? Today is Saturn's Day, aka Saturday, October 22nd, 2016. In 2013, the Australian Capital Territory became the first Australian jurisdiction to legalize same-sex marriage with the Marriage Equality, aka Same-Sex Act of 2013. In 2008, India launched its first unmanned lunar mission, Chandrayaan-1. In 2007, a raid on the Anuradhanapura Air Force Base was carried out by 21 Tamil Tiger commandos, 20 of which were murdered, leaving a wake of 8 destroyed Sri Lanka Air Force planes with 10 others damaged. In 2006, a Panama Canal expansion proposal was approved by 77.8% of voters in a national referendum held in Panama. In 2005, Tropical Storm Alpha formed in the Atlantic Basin, making the 2005 Atlantic hurricane season the most active Atlantic hurricane season on record with 22 named storms. In 2001, Grand Theft Auto 3 was released, popularizing a genre of open-world action-adventure video games, as well as spurring controversy around violence in video games. In 1999, Maurice Papon, an official in the Vichy French government during World War II, was jailed for crimes against humanity. In 1983, 2 correctional officers were murdered by inmates at the United States Penitentiary in Marion, Illinois. This incident inspired the Supermax model of prisons. In 1981, the U.S. Federal Labor Relations Authority voted to decertify the Provisional Air Traffic Controllers Organization for its strike the previous August. In 1978, the papal inauguration of Pope John Paul II occurred. In 1976, red dye number 4 was banned by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, aka FDA, after it was discovered that it caused tumors in the bladders of dogs. In 1975, the Soviet unmanned space mission Venera 9 landed on Venus. In 1972, during the Vietnam conflict, in Saigon, Henry Kissinger and South Vietnamese President Nguyen Van Thieu met to discuss a proposed ceasefire that had been worked out between the United States and North Vietnamese in Paris. In 1968, during the Apollo program, Apollo 7 safely splashed down in the Atlantic Ocean after having orbited the Earth 163 times. In 1966, the Soviet Union launched Luna 12. Also in 1966, the Supremes became the first all-female music group to attain a #1 selling album, which was The Supremes A Go-Go. In 1964, in Canada, a multi-party parliamentary committee selected the design which became the new official flag of Canada. Also in 1964, Jean-Paul Sartre was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature, but turned down the honor. Maybe because he knew how much of a farce that prize is, and he knew what the future would bring involving it. In 1962, during the Cuban Missile Crisis, U.S. President John F. Kennedy, after having an internal council with Dwight D. Eisenhower, announced to the public that U.S. reconnaissance planes had discovered Soviet nuclear weapons in Cuba and that he had ordered a naval quarantine of the communist nation. In 1957, during the Vietnam conflict, the first U.S. casualties in Vietnam was suffered. In 1947, the Kashmir conflict started, which was a territorial conflict primarily between India and Pakistan, which had started just after the partition of India in the same year. In 1946, Soviet Operation Osoaviakhim took place, which recruited thousands of military-related technical specialists from the Soviet occupation zone of post-World War II Germany for employment in the Soviet Union. In 1943, during World War II, during the second firestorm raid on Germany, the Royal Air Force conducted an air raid on the town of Kassel, murdering 10,000 people and rendering an additional 150,000 houseless. In 1941, also during World War II, French resistance member Guy Moquet and 29 other hostages were murdered by the Germans in retaliation for the death of a German officer. In 1934, in East Liverpool, Ohio, Federal Bureau of Investigation, aka FBI, agents shot and murdered notorious bank robber Pretty Boy Floyd. In 1927, Nikola Tesla introduced 6 new inventions, including single-phase electric power. In 1907, the Panic of 1907 initiated when a run on the stock of the Knickerbocker Trust Company set events in motion that would lead to a depression. In 1884, the Royal Observatory in Britain was adopted as the prime meridian of longitude by the International Meridian Conference. In 1879, allegedly, Thomas Edison, using a filament of carbonized thread, tested the first practical electric incandescent light bulb, which lasted for 13.5 hours before burning out. In 1878, the first rugby match under floodlights took place in Salford between Brogerton and Swinton. In 1877, the Blantyre mining disaster in Scotland caused the deaths of 207 miners. In 1875, the first telegraphic connection in Argentina occurred. In 1866, a plebiscite ratified the annexation of Veneto and Mantua to Italy, which occurred 3 days prior on October 19th. In 1844, during the Great Anticipation, Millerites, whom were the followers of William Miller, anticipated the end of the world in conjunction with the second advent of Christ. The following day became known as the Great Disappointment. In 1836, Sam Houston was inaugurated as the first president of the Republic of Texas. In 1797, André Jacques Garnerin made the first recorded parachute jump from 1,000 meters or 3,200 feet above Paris. In 1383, the 1383-85 crisis in Portugal started when King Fernando died without a male heir to the Portuguese throne, which sparked a period of civil war and disorder. In 794, Emperor Kanmu relocated the Japanese capital to Heian-kyo, known today as Kyoto. And in 4004 BC, according to the Usher chronology, the world was created at approximately 6 o'clock in the evening. First, Carlos Mencia, 1967, Bob Odenkirk, 1962, Jeff Goldblum, 1952, Tony Roberts, 1939. And that concludes the show. Once again, you can check the underbar for any links you may be interested in. Don't forget to look right and left at every intersection. You can also rate 5 thumbs and subscribe if you do so wish. For your dose of Passivins Daily, I am Aeoxander, and you are you. Toodles!